Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing, one of the fastest growing real estate investing podcasts in the world. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors? Find out what got them to where they are now. Get insight into their daily habits and take these insights to inspire your own growth. Each episode, Jonathan Greene shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor and the founder of Streamline, a data-driven, investor-friendly, independent real estate brokerage located in Madison, New Jersey. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, this is the free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Thanks for showing up for another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. My guest is Jonathan Iger of Sage Realty. This is crazy, but they've been enriching the lives of people at work since 1924. This company has been in his family for over 100 years, and we're going to talk about how commercial real estate can do just that. It's a concierge type of show, and it's a different view on commercial real estate and the services provided to businesses that rent there. Let's go. This is episode 317 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Jonathan Iger. Jonathan is the CEO of Sage Realty Corporation, where he develops, implements, and oversees their corporate strategy, operating strategy, and investment initiative, but he also has prior experience at boutique real estate investment and asset management firms and was the founder of a boutique residential brokerage company that focused on recent college grad submarket. Also interesting. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you most just because it's two Jonathans. Like we can just revel in our names. That's always a fun one. So let's just start with this 100 years. This company has been in your family for now 101 years. Just explain the meaning of that and where they started. I think it'll set good context for where we're going to get to.
Yeah, the company was started by my great-grandfather, William Kaufman, on my mother's side in 1924. It's not the typical, I'll call it, Jewish immigrant real estate story in New York, where you had a textile business, and one day you woke up and you realized the building that you worked in or that you owned was worth more than your operating business, and okay, maybe I should be in real estate. We don't have much insight into how he entered into real estate, only that he had a cousin who was married to a gentleman who was in real estate, and William Bean Williams said, that's what I'm going to do, and somehow did it. And so 1924 to 1930, we don't have that much information, but by the early 1930s, he was a residential developer.
Yeah.
So
that's where it started, with residential development. And isn't it interesting, though, to think what that looked like back then? Because I've never actually even told anyone this, but this is a great point. I was researching my history on Ancestry, very similar to yours. I'm going back through it. And my great-grandfather came over and then was in Essex County in New Jersey, and he had a real estate corporation. So now I'm doing all this due diligence, and it looked like they were in development. And I'm trying to figure out, like, how did that work back then, where, now there's just, all of these home builders and everything, but it was very much a person-to-person business then. And it's probably where it transformed over the years, still is. But does that hold something important to know that it started with just, your grandfather thinking, I'll probably just go build one house, and now you're 100 years later?
Yeah, I think, even more so him being an immigrant, not having effectively a high school education. He was a fairly tall man, piercing blue eyes. He was someone, I know, a Cary Grant type, who entered the room and held the room. And what you were just touching on, and I think it's still so indicative of being successful in our industry today, in most industries, but I find it so integral in our industry, around relationships. And so our little understanding that we had in how he started was he was highly respected within his community. I think never tried to take giant leaps, but small steps, and knew what his capabilities were, knew what his aptitude was. We'll talk a little bit about how he was able to read the tea leaves. And so it was effectively what you and I know as syndication deals, right? It was passing the cup around at shul,
Right, and they're used to. We were used to that, so it's like, yeah, we'll just throw a little extra in for the deal here, and we're good to go.
That was it. You return a couple dollars, to those investors, and they're happy to give it back to you typically, and maybe a slightly larger check, and so, yeah, that's kind of where he got his start.
Yeah, and I mean, now even flash forward into the traditional syndications, you're still everyone who does syndication is the stewards for other people's money, and it's just such an important thing when you start taking other people's money to be able to make sure that you're handling it the right way. That's why I've read a lot about what you guys do, and we'll get into that in the forefront. But it's a very interesting and unique product that you're looking to build into the future, right?
Yes. Yeah. So since late 40s, early 1950s, we've really been focused on office. We played in most traditional asset classes. Really up through the 1970s, we owned a mixed-use portfolio across the UK in the 90s that we disposed of in the mid-2000s, coming out of the GFC. But really, our core has been ground up office development and acquisition redevelopment, particularly in New York City, starting in the early 1950s. And even then, we developed our first Class A ground up development, 711 3rd Avenue, which still stands today. It's owned by SL Greene. And if you walk into that building today, in the lobby, the actual center core, right, the elevator core of the property, it's not marble, it's not stone, it's not wood. It's a tile mosaic that we commissioned an artist named Hans Hofmann back in the early 1950s. And he installed a tile mosaic around there. And the reason that exists today, the reason that William Kaufman did that in the early 1950s, is he believed that an office should feel like your home as much as possible. Because particularly in the 1950s, the growth of the U.S. service economy, driven so much by the GI Bill, people were really going to be spending more time in their offices than their own homes. And so how do we make them comfortable? And so he equated the lobby of an office building to the foyer of someone's house, if you were blessed enough to own a house back then. And what do you have in the foyer of your house? You have artwork, or you have photography of your family. And he wasn't going to put a picture of himself or of his sons or his wife. So rather than put up, a stale piece of art that after a couple you go by, here's something that's grounded and makes the development humanistic, right? He is saying, buildings are built for humans. So that has very much informs, where we are taking the company today, where the customer expectation is simply elevated and has significantly changed. But our vision as a company is to enrich the lives of people at work. We're a purpose-driven company, and that's really what we're looking to achieve. And so what we've stood up over the preceding 7-8 years, on the shoulders of close to 100 years of our history, is branded office properties. And we've never seen that before within our industry, right? We see brand in the majority of other industries that we interact with on a daily basis in our lives. Car companies, clothing companies, even insurance companies, right? But not real estate, right? Real estate, unless it's an architecturally significant building, right, is really known by the address
especially in New York.
Right. Someone says, Jonathan, where do you work? You're going to not name a building or the owner or the property manager. You're going to say, I work at 780 3rd Avenue. If you start to ask a number of the people who work in our properties, where do you work? 777 Third Avenue, which is a Sage property, they'll say, "Oh, I work in a Sage building. I work in a Sage property." And so we're starting to see the success there. It's very akin to the hotel industry, what's known as the flag model. I don't think most people realize when they're staying at a hotel, and 70% of hotels across the United States are what are known as flagged, right? A branded hotel. And I would think most consumers, when they're staying at a Marriott, a Hilton, a Hyatt, a Ritz-Carlton, they make the assumption that that hotel is owned by that company. Marriott's the largest lodging company in the world by number of properties, number of rooms. They own less than 5 hotels.
That's crazy. No one would think that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the majority of large lodging companies today are effectively franchising and licensing companies, right? And a number of them, most of them don't even do their own property management for 2, 3, and even 4-star hotels. Marriott will obviously, or not obviously, but will manage their 5-star hotels, their St. Regis's, their Ritz-Carltons, to maintain that consistent quality across, that surety of consistent quality. We're looking to bring that to commercial real estate. We believe that there is real power in brand as long as you deliver on what you promise as a brand. And within our own properties, we've seen that impact positively our financial outcomes. So, by standing up our brand and then executing on what's behind that brand, we increase gross rents. We do increase expenses. It costs more to run a 5-star building than a 4-star building, but you're definitely increasing NOI. Most importantly, I think it's very much informed as long-term owner, builder, managers, is our greatest metric is our renewal rates. And I'm sure for you and our listeners, myself in earlier years, if you were putting together your Excel model, your Argus model, and specifically for office, you're going to dump in probably a 75% renewal rate. And the lenders historically, right, are going to use their own models and assume a 75%. Yeah. And so because of that concept's been institutionalized, but that's not the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground in New York City is that the renewal rate is sub 38%.
Yeah. Is that partially due to COVID and work from home situations, or not at all? No,
these are statistics.
Interesting.
The 38% that I throw out, and again, no one's able to truly pinpoint exactly, but that sub 40% was what was pre-COVID. So it's probably been impacted. We'll talk, I'm sure, about where we see the future of the market. But I think if you look at, a preceding 20, 30-year pattern, that's what's more indicative of the market than that assumed 75%. And we think that's where having a branded office experience has the greatest impact, is if you've stayed and you can afford to stay at a Four Seasons in your life, and that's where you've stayed a number of times, you're not going to then go back to a Marriott unless there's other factors involved in that decision. And we feel the same way with the Bill's office environment. You can find other Class A product in New York City. You could definitely find it within the geographic regions in which we're situated across the city. But you're not going to find anything similar to the way that you've lived, worked, and played over your 3, 5, 7, 10, 15-year lease in one of our properties.
Yeah. What are the main differentiators between something very good and what you guys are doing at Sage? Because I know it's partly design, but I think that it's probably amenities, vibe, everything put together. And then as you grow, it's like, well, you have the best companies in there. So that helps each other in an environment that is also inviting. Because I know from just looking and being around, big office, a lot of it's just terrible. It's just, and coming from someone who I worked for the government for 8 years, of course, that's not going to be high class offices, but you still we had fluorescent lights, no windows. It doesn't help you work. So you can't be productive. So tell me what the differentiators are, because I'm really interested in, because then we'll get into where the future lies, which I know is even better.
Sure. So we have a number of, highly reputable operators in New York City, right? Whether it's simply third-party management or more vertically graded owner manager. And you walk into their buildings, and from a facility management standpoint, right, they are on point. They're 5-star. And to a certain level of their front of house, staff training, they are 5-star. I still think the main focus is on operational excellence. And now they're layering on top, like you mentioned, physical amenities.
Yeah.
Or they're introducing some type of on-premise employee with the experience title, experience somewhere in their title.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or they are sending a good amount of their staff, particularly front of house, on-premise staff, to the Ritz-Carlton gold standard, ladies and gentlemen, 2-day class. And then they never go back, right? The other key I would say is that while they may operate buildings to a certain extent similarly, it's not the same. So SL Greene's a prime example, right? Phenomenal operator. But if you if you're a tenant or a guest at 100 Church Street, that is a vastly different experience, even outside of the aesthetics, than walking into One Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, outside of the aesthetics, one building achieves $200+ square foot rents, and the other achieves $50 square foot plus rents.
Yeah.
And they don't treat it the same. So when we talk about what differentiates Sage, and again, in order to establish and maintain a brand, there has to be consistency, is, I wouldn't say first and foremost, right? But our approach is always around experience, right? What is the experience? And when we talk about internally and externally at times, what is the Sage way? What differentiates Sage? We don't point to a specific service or offering. It's an approach of, we look to elevate every touch point along the customer journey, whether that customer is the actual paying tenant, any one of their employees who has access into one of our properties, a guest visiting that occupant, a vendor who works with us. And so the way you do achieve that, right, beyond the approach, is first and foremost through SOPs, standard operating procedures, right? If you worked at a Four Seasons hotel, the front desk reception role has over 110 standard operating procedures for that specific role. And so we have a proprietary tech stack that we can talk about. And part of that is a web-based, basically SOP database, along with significant training. So that sets the standard across all properties. And then we layer in things that are associated with brand, scent, music. Our music is actually curated to reflect our brand, but is also informed by the tenancy. So I'm having a conversation with you right now in one of our properties, 2 Gansevoort in the Meatpacking District. Very different clientele than our Plaza District property at 437 Madison. You'll notice differences in the curated music, but one's not, I don't know, soft rock and the other jazz.
Yeah.
There's a continuity line in between. And then I'd say, from a front of house noticeable service offering, and I truly can say I don't know of any other commercial operator out there doing this within the office space, is we lean heavily into a concept in the hospitality industry known as surprise and delight.
Yeah.
So if you've ever been at a 5-star hotel, and you ended up being on your birthday, but you never informed them, or your anniversary, or maybe it's the 10th time you've gone to the hotel, and they've kept track of that, and you show up and there's a bottle of champagne and a fruit plate and tickets to a show.
Yeah.
They know that you really like jazz. And so you're in New York City and they've bought tickets to jazz at Lincoln Center. Whether you use them or not, these are for you. Our entire front of house staff is trained and empowered to provide surprise and delight, both at a property level, a tenant level, and what we call a Sage member level. So anyone who works in any of our properties is considered a Sage member.
That's awesome.
So what that could look like, a little bit more difficult, as we're a New York City-based company. If the Knicks ever won the NBA championship,
we can all only just hope. I mean, they're on the right track. I mean, look, I still have nightmares of Ewing's missed layup, so like we're good. And that was probably 30 years
Charles
ago now.
Smith, the four
you can't talk about it. Yeah.
John Starks won for 16 in the finals. I used to cry as a kid growing up.
We could have a whole nother podcast just on Knicks terror.
Well, if they did win and we did do surprise and delight, we definitely would blow our budget. But congratulations to all of our members who are Oklahoma City Thunder fans last year. And we're able to go into a proprietary, effectively CRM database on all of our members, look up if we know. So look up any member that we know that their favorite team is the Oklahoma City Thunder. And that next day, maybe we're landing Oklahoma City Thunder cupcakes on the desk of every, not just in one property, but any Sage property, they're going to do that. Unless, again, we're on a property in Oklahoma City, and then again, we might
a
not
little
be able
bigger.
to do that. Our staff are trained to listen. And I think that's such an important quality, particularly in any sense, but particularly when it comes to hospitality. They're trained to listen and overhear conversations, right? And they're trained to really listen when they're having a conversation and find the opportunities to make those humanistic connections, both because that's what we're all looking for in this world,
absolutely.
But also to gather that data so that we can elevate that experience. So, and again, anything that we can learn about you, what pets you have, what kind of pets, their names, your kids. If you walk into a Sage property, your wife and let's say your kids were young, coming to stop by the office. Anyone who comes into our office with a kid, I won't say there's an opportunity for us to surprise and delight them. And not dissimilar to, I'm sure how, I don't see it as much, although my kid did get it a couple flights ago. And we used to go on flights, right? American Airlines, Pan Am, they'd give you that little pin.
Man, I have so many wings from when I was a kid.
Right?
It just starts it off good. But that's exactly what you're saying. It's just the difference between saying hi and then hi to the kid and then saying hi and then hi, Brent, is astronomical for the owner. And as you were thinking, like, one, I'm sure you've read the book Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guida. Like this is all in that same realm. And I also, when you're talking about the checklist, I can't remember the name of the book. There's literally a book about checklists that pilots. It's like, these are the strategies that help you build, and then you build something great on top of them. But one other thing I wanted your help validating something for me, because you used to own a residential brokerage. I own a residential brokerage now, and I have a very small space, but it's different than any other brokerage. It looks like a design studio. And what we were saying, I think I'm the first person who've done this. And now, of course, you're validating it for me. When I'm having a closing there, the people get a form before, and it says, what scent do you want? We pop it into the diffuser. What playlist on Spotify do you want? And what drink do you want? And to me, that's not very hard to do. Of course, you're doing it at scale, but you're asking people to just pay attention to the little things. And one name or knowing a pet could turn into a lifetime of business just by that one little thing. And it must be so important to train the staff that way, because people are bad at listening now because we all, have a million devices. So being a good listener now, I think amplifies what you do, don't you? So much more, because so many, every place else, they don't care even who you are.
Yeah, I think tremendous amount of respect. My first, for our on-prem teams, when I first came to Sage after having a successful career as an operator, as an investor. My grandfather, 50% of my time was spent on the headquarters floor, and 50% of my time was spent in the properties, with the engineers, with the property ops staff. And we expect a tremendous amount from them, and we do our best to provide the resources, the training. And yes, you need to have a strong background, engineering, operations, to be successful in that role. But going back to the idea of listening, when it comes to things that we talk about, front of house, providing that hospitality, some of it can be trained. Other is innate personality. And so for us, we're very focused on hiring, knowing that you can only train so much, right?
Yeah.
Unreasonable Hospitality, that is a book that every person in our member experience department is required to read set by our director, among a couple of other, really informative books.
Yeah,
And
Danny Meyer's book is great too. I was just seeing the correlation to restaurants, because it's such a hospitality thing. When people think hospitality now, they always, of course, are matching hotels and even short-term rentals now with, these luxury stays. But, restaurants, it's so hard to do that business. And office, people would think now, one of the hardest business, just in terms of what happened during COVID. So I kind of see those working together even more now, just because people say office is dead, and you're going, not just, no, is it not dead? Like, we're going to another level that you wouldn't expect. That's what I think, like you said, from a retention standpoint. So, well, no one else, I can't get this anywhere else. So me as a person, and maybe you as well, if I'm going to pay up for something, I just want it to be worth it. If it's worth it, why would I leave? Hey, it's Jonathan, the podcast host Jonathan, not the other Jonathan, but I hope you're enjoying this double Jonathan episode. And if you want to get an idea of what they do at Sage, go to sagerealty.com and scroll through and see what it must feel like to have a business inside one of these iconic buildings. It's truly a different view on commercial real estate and services. Let's get back to the show.
You want to be worth it. You want it to meet and preferably exceed your expectation for the perceived value.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
what you touched on with Danny Meyer, there's a quote that's typically attributed to Danny Meyer. It actually came from Tom Colicchio, who was his partner at Gramercy Tavern, went on. Most people know him by the TV show Top Chef. Here's a quote that I think everyone within our organization knows. We actually threw a holiday party there, and it was in my holiday speech to ensure that they knew it, which is people come to the restaurant for the food. They come back for the experience. Particularly in New York City, in any industry where you have such enormous competition, right? His food's amazing. There's also, without exaggeration, 400 other restaurants that are amazing, from hole-in-the-wall places in Chinatown, right, to 3-star Michelin restaurants. And so even a good meal, right, you walk out and be like, that's a good meal. But if you're not turning back to whoever you ate with or had a drink with and said, we got to come back here, right?
Yeah, or
as you said,
what an experience instead of what a meal. That's your difference. Because I was thinking of it while you were saying it, and I can see myself walking out of a place that remembered my name and did a surprise where I would say that, what an experience. I wouldn't because I wouldn't be thinking about, it's not just the meal.
That's right.
Because like you said, I can go to Vanessa's Dumplings in Chinatown. It cost me $5. I have one of the best meals of my life. So that's interesting about New York, though.
And I think that's exactly the right analogy. It is. That was an amazing experience that I want to to have again.
Yeah.
And I think just based on, and we've always looked at it differently as long-term owners, right? It wasn't about landing the 10, 15-year lease because then we're going to sell the property at the highest, right? It's about how do we execute over the next 10 years to ensure that we renew them. And so you have to create a quality experience for 10 years. We use another example using Le Bernardin, 3-star Michelin restaurant, New York. I think it's been consistent 3 stars since Eric Repair got it. And when we talk about that Sage way earlier about looking to elevate every touch point along the customer journey, you see that in the most compressed time period in top operated restaurants, right? No one is going simply to Le Bernardin for the food, right? They're going for the experience. And you could have one of the best meals, food-wise, of your life. But if your server came over too often and filled the water glasses or not often enough, if everything was executed to perfection, and then the last experience is you get up, you've paid, you get to the maitre d' station, you hand your ticket over for your jacket, and it takes 5 minutes for them to get your jacket. You walk out, and for many, the experience, if not ruined, has been tarnished.
That's a high bar.
It's a high bar, and I think we're very careful to say that's why we strive to elevate.
Right.
Because you can never set a standard to meet that consistently. All we ask our employees is to strive for it.
Yeah, and the good thing, I think, when you have the attitude that you guys have, that if you do have a hiccup, you know that they have the resources to make it up to them either on a follow-up or next time. That's where it's important, because stuff happens. The special thing you ordered comes in and it somehow melts, and you're like, thinking on your feet, and everyone's not there to figure it out. But it's what you do after, same as thinking 10 years ahead. What are we going to do to retain them? And I think that's where a lot of current culture is missing, even startup culture, because they're so hard trying to get off the ground. And you guys have 100 years of this, which I think is important for new people. But I don't know a lot of new business that could go out with this strategy because they wouldn't have anything that proves that it works. You know what I mean? And they want that.
Yeah. What you're touching on, and again, going back to that kind of initial question around what differentiates us, the term you're actually talking about within the service industry is service recovery. And I don't think, even if you talk to 99.9% of the people at JLL or CBRE in property management and what CBRE now calls BOE, building operations and experience, a lot of tremendous respect for Jamie Hodari and a number of people on his team. They'll know about this concept. But the boots on the ground, if you simply said, hey, what's service recovery? That is equally as important as everything that we talk to, for everyone, whether you're the one actually paying us rent or you're the CEO, managing partner, who actually signed the lease with us. That service recovery part is unbelievably important.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you grow towards the future, how did you even get to this point through COVID when everybody was sure, and they're still saying that office is dead? Is it because your model has existed for so long and you're doing something different? And is office dead in your mind, especially in New York City?
Yeah. I think it's quite rare. And we definitely had a macro societal moment with COVID, right? That has impacted almost every industry in one way or the other. Definitely short term, and we'll see, midterm and long term. When someone actually says that, like, an overall industry is dead, and you go back and there are a couple people who have pointed to, the analog film industry to digital, and while it's not dead, yes, it's effectively dead. You look at the immediate decline of whale oil, and I'm sure others could bring a number of. That's the one that has stuck with me because of the rapidity of it. So I've always taken this concept, not because I am an office owner, of the office is dead. The way that the office business, when you are talking in generality, is dead. And at least for New York, that started before COVID.
Yeah.
So again, we're we're mainly core plus owners these days. The economics of owning a core plus building became flipped on its head by 2018, 2019. So in New York City, it was the concession packages and the spread between gross and net effective rent, right? Significantly changed the underlying economics of a property. It wasn't realized in net asset values at the time because of such a low interest rate environment, and CapEx is a below the line item. And so not impacting NOI on a cap rate. Those days are over. Anyone who's simply looking at, capping a property on NOI, now you are also adding in all of your future capital requirements. You're looking at return on capital, which is not an equation I even saw in pitch books for 20 years in commercial real estate. You saw that on the development side. You saw that maybe in a office opportunistic deal, but not on a core plus deal. Maybe the LP was underwriting it that way, but it's not a metric that was used, right? And then the inevitability, WeWork obviously pushed it and Flex, the reduction of term on lease. And not reduction of term when it came to 100,000+ square foot, for the majority. Some were looking for greater flexibility, but most 50, 100,000 square foot tenants, they're still putting in $100 a square foot on their own. They need to amortize that over term.
Yeah, right.
But many of our properties is made up of a tremendous amount of tenants who are 5, 6, 7,000 square feet. So the industry was already shifting. And then COVID occurs. And we start to get this death knell of the office. And anytime I was asked that question, whether it was by a tenant, prospective customer, way too many reporters, I would simply ask the question, outside of a clickbait title, do you think there are going to be no offices in America?
Well, that's the thing. News is only like frenetic. It's always one way. It's like, oh, Airbnb is dead. Like nothing's dead. Your family's been in this 100 years. It's just about, are you adaptable? Can you do it? Maybe some people can't, but it's usually because they're over levered. And that was the problem. It's not because, office is going to collapse. I actually see a lot of value just in terms of, just if you're talking about work from home culture and what happened with that. I remember working for the government, and like I'm sure you remember when you worked in the offices, you're still in an office, but like I loved having all of my friends there every day. We went out to lunch, just like the camaraderie was crazy. And now we have a loneliness epidemic, and people are like, oh, no one wants to go back to the office. Yes, they do. They really should.
I love that you say that, and I'm always hesitant too. Loneliness epidemic, mental health epidemic.
For sure. All related, though, too.
With our younger generation, exacerbated by COVID and the impact of COVID on how people live their lives. And we're seeing it impact so many other industries. We've been talking about the restaurant industry because of hospitality.
Yeah.
We want to talk about COVID's impact on the restaurant industry now, not the 5 years and the years that they were closed when many of us think they shouldn't have been. But happy hour for you and I was no earlier than 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6:30. Then you went to dinner. If you were in, your relationship building, your networking, everything at a restaurant's moved up an hour. happy hours 4:30 to 5:30.
Yeah.
Then their dinner. I mean, some of the most popular restaurants in New York, I know, are doing their final, table turn at 8 o'clock. These are restaurants that used to have specific late night menus
Yeah,
for
right. I mean,
10:30,
11 o'clock, no
11:30.
problem. Yeah, yeah,
Right. Um, People aren't socializing as much. And so it sounds self-serving, but I truly believe it. I would want it for my kids as they grow up. And then it goes back to having a differentiated property.
yeah, yeah,
Is the office needs to be the office, but it needs to then solve for those things. And you mentioned it: stale air quality and shitty lights,
yeah.
and every executive having window line space, and your bullpen employees being deep
Ooh,
core of a product.
yeah.
All
The
of these
bullpens.
all of these come and not billing them out. I love how companies will say we're bringing people back to the office for collaboration and ideation, but they're not augmenting their space to support that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
look, we can't control in many ways outside of some of the standard finishes what a company does for their employees within their space. The way that we've looked at properties way before COVID was the property is an extension of your space beyond your four walls.
yeah,
And it used to be, we had this moniker being a partner in productivity to you, right? So our first focus, our service platform was really focused on, we do real estate and real estate adjacent on a daily basis, not you. So if you're a larger company, you only move once every 10 years,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And you're not hiring a relocation company, outside of the actual physical movers. We can introduce you to every vendor that you need to know, single point of contact,
yeah.
right? And then that grew to now addressing the needs of everyone else in the building, all of the employees that work in the building, and from a much more member experience, lifestyle approach.
It just makes so much sense to me. I wonder, what do you think of the kind of middle part of startup culture, which created offices that were like, cool, you have cereal machines, and ping pong, but I got that in the startup vibe. But again, like, how can you say, you guys got to be more productive when you're putting, like, having table tennis matches and unlimited cereal? Like, I like the idea of it. Like, if I was in my 20s and I could have unlimited cereal at work, I probably have 14 bowls a day. But I know that's not what you're putting out there. This seems like a real concierge level assist to the business, like you're saying, which I think is even more important because, like you said, people, I don't think they really know how to work that much anymore. They got the internet. I grew up without, the internet. So it's like, now we all know everybody's on their computers all day. You can get sidetracked, with a shiny object in 1 second. But if the supporting parameters are there that make you feel comfortable and calmer, like you said, sense, music, it really makes a big deal. I'm with you on that.
Thanks.
Yeah. It's thinking for the other people instead of, for the building. The building enhances what people are going to do. And again, that just goes back to, you want lifetime subscribers, people who are going to rent and then just keep renting and, until their company takes a turn or they want to do something different.
Yeah. I mean, we like renewal rates is our KPI, and the only time I ever want to lose a tenant is they can't afford us anymore.
Yeah.
We can't accommodate their growth, or they're moving out of New York City. There should be no other reason. I mean, we were having this conversation maybe 6 months ago, and I made this exact statement. Someone pretty senior said, well, that's being a little nitpicky. What if there's a new president that comes in and he or she wants to be more centrally located to Penn Station? We don't have anything near Penn Station. And I was like, if we had 7 years, right, to make an impression on these people, get me in front of that new CEO. Let's do a 6-month extension with them right now. And we have 6 months to prove out that additional 12-minute commute for that one person. I want to define that as the most important person, but the most important person within that decision-making process in the company when it comes to the selection of the location of their real estate. And now we got 6 months to prove what we feel we should have proved to every one of that person's employees over the last 7 years.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, the cost to move is so big. So like, just like in self-storage, it's like the stickiest business. Nobody's going to move because nobody wants to. You're just going to go get another crappy unit and then your price is going to go up also. But like, yeah, it makes sense. But if you're going the extra mile, they don't even have to have that thing in their head, every time the lease is up. Well, should we try to negotiate for a lower? No, we have the best spot. And especially because like you were saying before, I took a lot from that there's other businesses that operationally are this type of thing, they're operationally great, but they're not going deep on the customer. It's just a whole different level of experience, similar to how we were talking about restaurant. It's just how nobody listening can say, I wouldn't like that. If you go to a restaurant and they have, like your favorite dessert queued up and you don't even know how they knew it. Like, I don't care how they stalk me. If they get that thing right, put the coconut cake there. I'll never forget it. So where do you see it going? I mean, you've definitely designed something that's different. Do you have kind of designs to go along with where office is going in terms of either reconstruction or redesigning how you're doing it for just a kind of a different society as we go?
Yeah, and it's definitely tied back into the question around, is office dead? And very, very early on, coming out of COVID, beyond my response to, do you really think there's going to be no offices in New York City? And if not, let's redefine the term dead and what you're really trying to mean outside of sell some newspapers or, someone click on your YouTube video. The slices of the pie have shifted. So speaking specifically to New York, which we're seeing the greatest shift in pie in a sense. One, the pie is getting smaller. That's not a bad thing, right? The greatest impact that COVID's had, or as a cause of remote work and hybrid work, is we had an Econ 101 problem, and many other cities still do across the country. It's supply and demand. A very healthy New York City office market is a 10% vacancy rate. We have some sub markets right now at 4%, in which a number of our properties are situated. And we still have a number of properties that are situated in, geographic regions that are now sub 20%, but it definitely exceeded 20%. So things like conversions, right? We're seeing conversions office to hotel, mainly office to resi. One of my favorite was actually a Class C building, office to self-storage.
Because you don't have to make all new plumbing. I mean, it just makes sense.
You don't have to worry about the light and the air. You don't have to worry about the slab to slab heights.
Right. I mean, it's just, that's the thing. Like, I think from the outside, someone who doesn't think about it, it's like, well, you have a big office building, just turn it into residential. It's like, no, there's one bathroom on each floor. There's only windows on one side. Like, it's not built for residential. You have to do so much to turn it in. That's what's interesting, because there's real estate there. It's just about, is someone going to there's definitely repurposing going on. There's plenty of buildings that probably, it just can't happen.
Yeah. But I think, again, those owners will be forced to sell at a basis where that investor will figure out how to make something happen. They'll have their plan. So again, going back to our future tied to that, not death of the office, but that changing pattern of, what makes up the office market is office in many cities. We have a new segment. We have true trophy luxury. And we've always had, call it class AAA trophy properties.
Yeah.
That segment is far more expansive, right? before COVID to achieve $100 a square foot, couple buildings. Now we got buildings, couple achieving 300 at the top, 200. Any new development, ground up, New York City, needs to blend to well north of $200 a square foot. Your base anchor tenant's got to be 180 to make those numbers work. And then you used a term early on, and it is the term that we use, and that is differentiation, differentiated product. And we see this in so many other industries. And what we've stood up is a differentiated product. Most people today look at differentiated product and it's, the owner put in a lot of money around amenities and other components. But once everyone does that, or the majority, and then you have call it a 1-star, 2-star product, which is also shrinking, but there's still always going to be customers out there who, I don't want any of that. I'm an attorney with 3 people doing immigration law. 20% of my work is pro bono. I need a place that I can do my work, that is transportation adjacent to the courthouse or to wherever I'm, and I don't want to pay more than $35 a square foot. That market's always going to exist, right? It's like someone saying like maybe there's a downturn in the overall lodging world, and Motel 6 isn't going to exist anymore. Of course it's going to exist.
Yeah, I mean, a Motel 6 of some kind, because when you're driving, between, across the country, you got to stay somewhere.
Yeah, there may be lesser demand one day for it when we have, self-driving cars and you could just sleep in your car, you go. But there's still going to be a demand for that product type. It's just going to be smaller.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened. So a lot of owners are facing this right now, not dissimilar to ourselves. In order for us to stand up Sage as a brand, to create brand equity, and to create the operating platform, we've spent millions of dollars, millions of human capital dollars, and it's taken us beyond our 100-year history, a focus of starting this in 2018. So even people hearing this, you can't start this journey tomorrow and have something up and running 12 months from now. So we are expanding in 2 different ways. One is a very asset light model, much more akin to the flag model in the hotel industry. And we are currently working with a couple owners, both in New York City and outside of New York City, in exploring flagging their property. So replacing their existing property management company, coming in, doing property management, experience management, the entire, vertical gamut around that outside of leasing. We will do leasing oversight, but not actually be the boots on the ground agency leasing. And that's where we're spending, I'd say, about 75% of our time, 70% of our time. The other percentage on a growth basis is more traditional, how we've operated in the past, how I've operated other businesses in the past. It's not a fund structure. We work with strategic equity partners. So typically single LP check writers.
Yeah.
If 2 LPs have worked together in the past, and that they're just looking to spread the check size out or something, we're always open to that.
Yeah.
But we're not looking to do a deal with 6 LPs. We're not syndicating deals.
Right.
We need to be able to move very quickly. And so just as we've always done, we underwrite anything that comes to market in New York. We underwrite office in a couple other cities where our strategic LPs are focused on as well. And part of that, and I know so many of your listeners are investors and dealing with LPs. Every conversation I have with an LP, not just our LP, right? An LP in the industry, and it's the impact of COVID. We talk so much about experience, is the days of your investment thesis being on the office side. I'm buying into a core plus, right? We're going to maintain operational excellence. And because of certain macro factors, location, quality of asset, This is effectively going to be a fixed income product throwing off, 5.5% yield, right? Those days are gone. We touched on the capital costs, everything. From a value add perspective, right? The days of going to an LP and saying that building's achieving $60 a square foot blend. We're going to go in, we're going to redo the lobby, we're going to add amenity space, we're going to have this great marketing campaign. I'm bringing on these top brokerage team. We anticipate a 36-month lease up. We'll dispose of the property no later than month 48. We're anticipating no cap rate compression. And here's our track record. We've done it before. Doesn't matter what your track record's been before. That's not an investable solution anymore. So the question becomes, the question that we always heard as GPs, as operators, what's your differentiator, right? But it's more focused in my experience over the last 12 months. What is your differentiator in your operating platform? How does your operating platform create alpha for us? Because if not, why wouldn't I put my money just with Blackstone when it comes to real estate? Because whether you're going to claim it's deal flow, execution, like all the old standard stalwarts, and that's why we've seen so much of the money continue to funnel to, the top 5, top 6 on traditional LP. And so those are the LPs that we work with, that we've shown them the track record of how this operating platform, everything we talked about over the last almost hour, it's not simply because we want to enrich the lives of people at work. I mean, that is our vision. There is a financial return to this, right? It truly is, a elevated experience for our customer, creates alpha for our investors. On all the things I mentioned before, increased revenue, increased NOI, decreased CapEx. You decrease CapEx and you have some type of draw facility on your loan, right? You're no longer drawing the amount of capital you assumed when you acquired the property or repositioned the property. Now we're actually increasing the net asset value on that alone. And then, of course, on a cap rate, right, we've increased NOI. So that's where we play. It's all on the Sage platform. One's more asset light and one's more traditional.
Awesome, man. I really enjoyed it. And I think it's such a unique feature. And you've developed proof of concept that's very easy to show people. Of course, people, in new markets, they may think, oh, well, how's this going to work? It can work. It's because it's unique. Like you said, you have the differentiators, but I like what you said, because I think if you have an OS that nobody can beat, you can always put that in play. And the OS is the thing that makes sure that there isn't anything missing, because you're so meticulous about making sure, if you have the checklist, you don't miss anything. That reduces CapEx just in and of itself. One checklist. I mean, that's what that whole book is about. I really appreciate your time. It was a great conversation. Really enjoyed it, and hope I get the opportunity to swing in and see one of these properties.
You're more than welcome anytime you're in the city. And, thank you so much for providing the platform, having the conversation, and letting us, talk about our 100-year journey and what we're going to be focused on. I don't know about for the next 100, but definitely for the next 10.
Yeah. And the best place for people to find you is sagerealty.com.
Sagerealty.com. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's been a pleasure.
Right. That was a double Jonathan show, and that is Jonathan Iger of Sage. You can find him at sagerealty.com. I'm the other Jonathan, Jonathan Greene. We'll see you next episode. Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up on episode 318 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And it's Jeff Hurst, the president and CEO of Furnished Finder. Furnished Finder grew from 20,000 to 300,000 listings from 2019 to 2025. If you know about midterm rentals, you know about Furnished Finder, but it's a lot bigger than that. We're going to talk about an article that Furnished Finder and AirDNA released together, Monthly Rentals, the Hidden Gem of Housing. See you next episode.